Hello, dear colleagues. Glad to see you today. First, let us check if you can see or hear me well. So please let us know by putting pluses or word yes or somehow. Please indicate that you can see and hear us well. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's start then. Yeah, I see. I see you messed about the weather. Yeah, we also have very bad weather today here in Kharkiv. It's snowing heavily, and actually we don't know if it is spring, the middle of April, or the winter is back. Anyway, today we're going to talk about competence-based approach in language teaching, and that is the last one in the set of webinars on this topic. And first, let us see if we are talking about the same thing. So competence, what is competence? It is something that people acquire, and that is knowledge and skills that people use to attain the goal. And I would to put an accent that it is acquired knowledge and skills. That is something that we as teachers must work on. What is the difference between the two approaches so that we could understand what it is about? Actually, you can see that the traditional approach which we normally use or have been using all the time is basically aimed at giving. For us it is giving, and for students it is acquiring a set of knowledge and skills about the language. For example, like the rules of forming tenses, the rules of pronunciation. So this is all knowledge about the language, and not necessarily this knowledge about the language can be used in real communication. We all know that, I deem. And the difference between that and the competence-based approach is that the target is a little bit different. The language is used for solving a meaningful real-life problem. And that is it, that the key accent, the key point is that students are able to do something, to perform a certain activity. And in this aspect, you see that the main result of teaching is I know how versus I know what in the traditional approach. Or for example, I know what present perfect is. I know how to form it. I know how to make affirmative, negative, and interrogative sentences. And that's it. Whereas in competence-based approach, we say, I know how to write a letter. I know how to make a phone call. I know how to perform a set of real-life activities using the language for that. And actually, the process of learning turns from reproduction, from making some sort of effort on doing exercises, most often not connected with real-life activities, to production, because whatever is done, and this is the key idea of the approach, of the competence-based approach we're talking about, is that it is production. So students must produce something at every stage of learning. It does not necessarily they need to produce material objects. No, not that, of course. That means that they have to produce something that they can see, that they can understand, that they can evaluate. And in this respect, the dominant component of teaching is student's autonomy. So that is the student who is working, that is a student who is producing something, and the student can produce something and can do something effectively only on the condition that he or she is independent and he or she is autonomous. So it means that the more attention is paid to student autonomy, student work independently and produce something. And again, how to assess the ideas, how to assess the process. As we all know, normally now, with the traditional approach, the process of control boils down to statistics. Like, we have 10 sentences as a test, and if a student gets 12 correct answers, he gets a 10. That's it. Does it correspond to the actual level of knowledge? Does it correspond to the actual knowledge of and mastery of the language? Of course not. It is something that is statistically, measured statistically, and that does not necessarily mean that a student is able to communicate in real-life situation. On the contrary, in competence-based approach, assessment is done every single moment of the activity. And what is very important, that assessment is done not only by teacher, but by students as well. This is something that, some key ideas. Here, what is more important, that normally in traditional approach, the accent is put down on learning and teaching the skills, like we know, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Whereas in the competence-based approach, we have to move from those traditional skills. Of course, it does not mean that we have to omit them or to put them away. No, of course not. But the accent is put on the modes of communication. So there are, as you can see, there are three basic modes of communication. And we have to understand that each mode of communication requires certain language and skills and knowledge. And that is, the interpersonal mode is the communication between two or more people in a variety of forms. Okay, I see, I'm sorry, I see that you cannot see us, but don't bother, we're trying to maintain the problem, and even if it doesn't work, and if you can hear us, that's okay, because you can always download the version of the seminar later when it is uploaded on the site. So don't bother, we're trying to handle the problem. So the idea is that, as you can see, all the three modes of communication basically have the word message, a meaning. And the idea is that it is more important to deliver a message, to deliver what you want to say, to deliver what you mean, and the language means for that are basically secondary. So it does not necessarily need to be grammatically or phonetically or correct or whatever. The idea is that the meaning must be delivered. And then, if you deliver a meaning, then you can start working on how to deliver it properly, grammatically, phonetically, vocabulary-wise, and this stuff. The interpretive mode, as you can see, is something that we know all very well. It is a passive mode, is the ability to listen and understand and read and understand the text and understand the meaning and interpret the meaning of the text. And something that is we do not normally use in our everyday classroom is presentational mode. As you can see, it's something that we try to omit a little bit, because it implies the ability to make oral presentations, to deliver a speech in public, and what's more, to be able to understand what impact does the speech, this message, will produce on the public, on the audience. And this is why it is a little bit different what we do normally, and something that we have to pay a little bit more attention to. Let us sum up a little bit. When we are talking about the traditional approach, it works from acquired knowledge, that we acquire knowledge and skills, like, as I said, the present perfect or the present continuous, that doesn't matter. And we first acquire the knowledge and skills on it, and then we solve a sort of communication problem, which is very often artificial. So it means that we teach what? As you all may agree with me, that normally brings very low motivation to learn, because the tasks not necessarily will be interesting and motivating or encouraging. Whereas the competence-based approach goes from having a real-life problem, necessarily a real-life problem, and the problem may be solved by acquiring and using some necessary knowledge and skills, language knowledge and skills. That means how to. Which is very motivating. At least it is much more motivating than traditional approach when we teach what. In this respect, we can let's have a look at the scheme. So what is the competence-based approach normally based on? This is our view. We do not insist that it is the utmost correctness and the stuff, but this is how we view it. First, we have the real-life problem. Then we have a challenge, so we have to make the task challenging for a student. And it should not be language-based. It should be real-life problem-based. Then we have to include the personal motivation, of which we'll speak a little bit later. We must imply critical thinking, because whatever we do in our life refers to critical thinking, and it uses critical thinking. It is impossible to exist, to do anything without critical thinking. And the last point is production. So we produce something, our student produce something, and in this case, this something is their way of solving the problem. We're talking about motivation. For me, the most important things, there are two things. This is motivation and critical thinking. And how can we improve, how can we encourage student motivation for doing something? We strongly believe that the best way to do that is to appeal to a student's personality. Because students are different, we are different. We come from different backgrounds. We have different psychological traits. We have some psychological and character specifics and this stuff. We live in different families. Some of us are richer, some of us are poorer. That's okay. So and some are religious, some are not religious. There may be a lot of things that make us different, and we cannot appeal to a student without taking into account the student's personality, like the three basic things: the background, the opinions, the values and beliefs, because different students, like, take for example, one from the rich family and the one from a poor family. One living in a huge cottage or a huge mansion, and the one living in a poor flat or apartment. They will probably have different attitudes to life. They will probably have different opinions on life. And they will probably have different values and beliefs. So when we put, what I'm talking about is when we put a task, when we assign our students with a task, we have to take into account that they are different and try to formulate the tasks the way that will be motivating for all the students, for all the categories of students. And appealing to students' personality. So there's something that should be personally interesting for everyone. How this can be done? We do believe that this can be done through developing critical thinking. And you see those critical thinking skills, they are very important not only for learning the language, they're very important for doing the life, actually. The analysis, comparison, contrast, supporting or rejecting the idea, and reasoning or justifying your point of view. This is extremely important. And when we teach our students, and our students are able to perform all these activities, there will be less problems for them to perform some critical life activity, not critical thinking, but critical life, to solve a real life problem. This is something we strongly believe. And how can we produce competence-based learning? Or better say, can we do that actually? Can we do that right now? I do believe that we can't. Unfortunately, so far we have no chance to introduce what is implied by competence-based approach, competence-based learning in a real classroom. Why so? Have a look. we as teachers are somehow limited by a lot of stuff. First, we're limited by the curriculum, because it is the document that is issued by the state, by the government, and we must follow it. And very often, the curriculum does not imply any competence-based activities. Second, it is a lack of time, and this is critical, because 2 classes a week is something that is very, very little for us to teach somebody something. You do agree with me, I suppose. We're not talking about specialized schools where they have 5 classes a week, and that is quite enough time for doing something that a teacher wants or has to try. But 2 classes a week is very little for providing, for both covering the curriculum and doing some competence-based activities, something, either this or that. Then we are skills-bound, because whatever is done in the real-life Ukrainian teaching is skills-based. Whatever textbook is, whatever any additional materials, they are based on basic skills. That's okay. That's normal, because we can't do without basic skills. But we have to decide where we put our accent on. We put our accent on teaching skills or teaching the language, teaching the ability to communicate. Okay, yeah, I see. Even 4 classes a week are not enough, definitely. Because the approach, the original approach, was counted to be at least 3 classes a day, 3 hours of language a day, 2 at the least. And this is something that we cannot do without. And the last one is textbook bound, because practically the only teaching materials that our teachers have are textbooks. And it is very important what kind of textbooks they use, what kind of teaching materials and what kind of approaches are used in those textbooks, because our teachers are bound by that, and we cannot live without it. We can follow that, and we must follow that. And this is something that that's some vicious circle, as you can see, that we cannot leave. But anyway, can we try? Yes, we can. How? First, I would like you to answer a brief question, and the first person who answers it correctly wins a small prize from our publishing group. So which of the teaching aims do you think is the most important one? Please type your answers, be quick, because we have a lot to talk about, and the time is limited. So which, okay, I see, Miss Virich, I know, so it is definitely, you are the winner, and you will get a prize of the 8th form textbook for 8th book students by our publishing group. So definitely, let's have a look. So practical aim, they are the key idea, the key thing that we have to take into consideration when planning our lesson. So, and the question that we are to ask ourselves in concerning this is, what real-life activities our students will be able to perform by the end of the lesson? Will they be able to write a note? Will they be able to produce a short conversation on a certain topic? Will they be able to make a telephone call? Will they be able to write a letter? Whatsoever. But what real-life activity? This is the key issue. Then, as you can see, all other aims, the teaching aims, they support the practical aim, because the educational, what language, knowledge, and skills will the students need for performing those real-life activities? So, like, for example, if it is a phone call, what real-life activities, what language activities our students will perform? First, they will have to find the number. So it means the skills of reading, so developing the skills of reading and finding the correct number in the correct place, either browsing the internet or in the yellow pages. Second is a proper style of communication. So the ability to say hello, the ability to greet, the ability to part, to say goodbye, and of course the ability to converse about the topic that you want. For example, if you're ordering pizza, then you will have to be able to talk about the ingredients. So you must know the ingredients. That is the language skills, the vocabulary. You must be able to bargain. And that is the idea of financial literacy in some aspect. So a lot of things that are hidden behind the very simple activity like making a phone call to order a pizza. And the developing aims in this respect, what competences and skills our students must develop for performing those activities. And the upbringing aims what personal competences and traits. You remember that they all are different. So, and a person, a shy person or an arrogant person, and they will have to develop different competences and traits for that. So, and this is something that we have to take into consideration when we talk about some practical real-life activity. What we tried to do, you can see the two textbook covers. What we tried to do in those textbooks, we tried to introduce some approaches that are very close to competence-based ones. And I would like to share the ideas how this can be introduced in a classroom. And it does not necessarily have to be our textbooks. It can be done with any teaching material. You remember, the idea is of how you formulate the tests. If you formulate them so that they are motivating and encouraging, that will be okay, and your students will work actively and efficiently and productively, which is very important. So, a few examples, but first we have to remember that there is some very well-known Bloom's taxonomy, and we have to consider it before we start actually planning any activities at our lesson. You remember, some cognitive processes, they go from the simplest to the most important, the most complicated, and the simplest one is remembering, and the last one is creating something. And we cannot, what's the idea is that we cannot mix them. We have to go from the first one to the sixth one to the last one, and this is the only way to go. We cannot mix them. We cannot start analyzing before we understand. This is the idea. As you can see, and you will be able to see if you don't know or if you have a different version, well, this is something that is very clear, that very clearly shows what sort of tasks can be used for performing this or that cognitive activity. And the second thing, then some practical advice, yeah? We use practical real-life contexts, relevant to learners. And the tests are challenging and not only about the language. So they should be about life. Please have a look. This is the example. This is one of the lessons from the 9th form textbook. And this is a lesson which is dedicated to developing the skill of reading. So more reading than anything else. What do we do? We set up the meaningful context, and it is protecting the environment. How do we do that? First, by giving a rhymed title of the lesson. Because it works subconsciously. Rhymes work subconsciously, as you all know, that you may not necessarily listen to the text or the lyrics of the song, but you remember it subconsciously because it is rhymed and rhythmical. So here, the same principle works. Beta liter, it's something that works very well because it goes somewhere into subconsciousness and makes up and creates a meaningful context for discussion. The first activity at any lesson should be, of course, warming up. And why not warm up in a meaningful context? We can all do that. We choose the task that we assign our students to do What is very important that the task may be very productive. As you can see, the first test, the warming up test, is making a brief rhymes. And here is a choice for the teacher, because the rhymes are given, the possible rhymes, but it does not necessarily mean that students must use only those rhymes. They may use, the brighter students may use their own rhymes. The brighter students may may make a verse of 4 lines. The slower students, the weaker students, may do 4 or 2 lines. That's okay. The idea is, whatever they do, there could be some production. So this is definitely something productive that they produce themselves. And you see, what is very important, they work in pairs, not individually. This is something that is critical, because whatever we do, we try to assign as many tasks referred to communicating as possible. The next one, as you can see, is developing critical thinking, because whatever we evaluate, that is critical thinking. And you remember, you understand that we do that all the time. In our real life, we always evaluate something. We always form out our critical opinion about something. We agree or disagree with something, basing on something. And this is what we call critical thinking. So wherever you try to ask people to sort out something, that is critical thinking, because they have to evaluate things and try to decide why they put this or that into the categories. What you can see here is that we activate the previous knowledge, the knowledge that they acquired at the previous lesson while listening to a lecture, talking about the types of environment and the stuff. And they have to decide what kind of problems should go into which category. Who must handle which problems? The next one is a brief task, and if you can see, the beginning of the task is, do you agree or disagree? That implies referring and appealing to personal opinions and personal values, because the opinions are different and they are based on something that our students have experienced in their previous lives. And what is very important in this, well, anyway, in any activity that we do, especially when we urge our students to talk, to give their opinion, what is very important, that their opinion be heard. And that they understand, they know the ultimate, they have the ultimate right to express, to voice their opinion, and that the opinion will be counted. And that they have the right to express their opinion, and that we as teachers will not tell that their opinions are wrong. It is impossible to say. Neither we nor anyone else must say you are wrong. No, never. We discuss. You have a different opinion from me, please give your choice, give your reasons why you think so, let us discuss. These are the only ways to work. And here you can see that what we do, we appeal to personal background, we appeal to personal values and experience, because we're talking about something that refers to everyone. In this case is littering. So we all have our own experience handling this problem. And we encourage critical thinking and interaction because we have to evaluate and give our reasons. And of course, we use the previous knowledge that we got before. Next one. Okay. We create the learning situations, whatever learning situations, as I've already told, that provoke and encourage and enhance interaction, whatever possible. Pair work, small groups, large groups, whole class, whatever activities, but the students must converse, they must communicate, they must interact with each other. That is the key point. Again, here we see that we work in small groups and we discuss something. And what is very important, that we have to broaden their horizons by giving them the understanding that whatever problem they're discussing may have a wider meaning, a broader meaning, a global meaning. So try to see the big in the little, to widen the tasks in meaningful global context. So to then we enhance the holistic vision, and we understand that our pile of litter near our door is something that is typical, and something that it not only us have to handle, but the whole world faces the same problem. What is very important? Okay, while waiting for the next slide to come. Okay, this is it. As I've already said, real-life examples, real-life teaching materials, they are very important because this is not something taken from nowhere, from the space, something abstract. No, very real-life things. And hopefully, nowadays, we are able to get as many materials as we wish, because the access to the internet is in practically every school, and we have to find whatever. We have to find real-life samples of blogs, real-life articles, real-life magazines or newspapers, real-life discussions or forums, whatsoever. It's our responsibility to find the information that could be interesting for our students, because it is of today's importance, not something that happened 100 years ago, but something that is happening today. And as you can see, the things that that is used here is very typical for the English-speaking world. They do not give the direct numbers, because numbers cannot be understood, they cannot be comprehended. They give the comparisons, like the amount of trash can fill the Britain's largest lake in just 8 months, and it tells a lot, because we can find this lake on the map. By the way, a very good experience to working with a map. Okay, this large lake, and this large lake is full of litters or full of trash. Gosh, that's it. And here it is very important to move from something to compare something. As you can see, the only way to understand, to comprehend something, is to compare it to something that the students understand. And here you can see the task. What could be done to make the situation better, and then do the cross-cultural analysis. What about Ukraine? If Britain experienced such a problem, well, what about Ukraine? Does Ukraine experience the same problem? Well, and if you understand, if you know that, can you provide examples? And again, critical thinking, again, interaction. You share and discuss your ideas in class. What else? As you can see, when I talked about real-life samples, you may find, as we did while doing our textbook, you may find a lot of useful information on any topic, a lot of statistics. So that is very important. And you can see that we just given the examples of the 3 of them. They are these did you know sections. They are in every section, in every lesson of the unit, and they are all dedicated to the same topic. Here it is environmental protection, and here it works. And the statistics that are critical, that are up to date, that are relevant for the current British life, and it can be compared to something. Oh, definitely, yeah. This is something that I'm talking about. It does not necessarily mean that we have to talk about environmental protection or whatever. Any problem, if you can put it the way that the problem is interesting or challenging or encouraging for students personally, what I mean when I was talking about the personal motivation, then they will produce something. And this is our task. The language actually may not be that important in this respect. Yeah, they can make mistakes, and this is one of the learning strategies that we have to teach them. Make the courage to make mistakes. Have a look, please, at the last at this. As you see, this is a suggested home task. You go from some global problem to your local problem, to something that you personally can understand, that you personally see every day. And you have to find some information. That means media, literacy, that means internet literacy or computer literacy, information technology, and this stuff. You have to do the information search, the independent search. You do it independently. You have to organize the information. You have to analyze the information, and you have to you appeal to personal background. That means that different students will find probably different information and different answers to the question. That's okay. There'll be something they will have to share. And then you encourage the critical thinking, and what else? You encourage cross-cultural approach, because you can discuss and you can give a task for a brighter student, say, find how it works in the United Kingdom, how it works in Australia, how it works in Southern Africa, how it works in the USA or Canada. There are a lot of English-speaking countries and a lot of information. And when we compare something to something, then we understand it much better. One more slide and three more advice, if I may say so. The autonomous learning is very important, so the students understand that they, what is most important in their life, they do not learn only in class. They learn all the time, and that gives them the opportunity to understand that their whole life is a process of study, of continuous study. And there are a lot of learning strategies for that, like using some software or using the internet for learning the vocabulary, for example, or the strategy of using the language wherever possible, or the strategy of not being afraid of making mistakes. Whatever possible, it is very good if we teach that based on our own personal life experience, so that the students, so that the students could understand that we are the same people as they are. Oh, I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, the second one, we must rethink the teacher's role. So again, if students work autonomously and independently, we cannot make commands, we cannot give them commands. Yeah, we assign them a task, and it is their responsibility to find how they will solve the task. And we do not interfere with the problem. We help, we mentor, we facilitate, we organize, we help organize, but the work must be done by students themselves. And that is their results, it is their production that they have. And whatever they have, that is okay, because, yeah, okay, we motivate, that's good. Whatever they produce, it is theirs. And it is very precious, it is valuable, and we have to value that. And they have to understand that we appreciate whatever result, whatever product they give. And in connection to this, the assessment, as we already spoken about, how do we assess it? It is the basic changes. It is assessment not of learning but for learning. We do not assess what the students don't know. We assess what students do know, and this is important. We pay more attention to that, and for that, we understand that peer assessment is much more important to students than ours, because our assessment is a little bit formal, and the students are used to the fact that the teachers assess them, they give them grades, they give them marks, that's okay, they're used to it. But what they really appreciate, what they really think of is, especially teenagers, is how their peers assess them. And I have my personal experience, because when I tried to do this activity, when students assessed each other, I was a little bit surprised, because there were not only 12s. We could probably guess there will be 12s, there will be 10s, there will be 11s. No, there were 7s, there were 9s, and there was no word against, because it is very difficult to say, oh, guys, put me 11, or give me a 10, or give me a 12, if you yourself understand that you did not work that hard, and that's your peers that assess you. And the further which is the most important thing, is the ability to self-assess, from teacher assessment to peer assessment, and from that to the most important thing, to real self-assessment. That is something that I believe that it is our aim, actually. For if our students are able to assess themselves in their life, that will be of great use for them further on when they finish school or go to university, or even after the university. Thanks a lot for your attention. That was great talking to you. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please use the following numbers or the following sites for contacting us, asking questions, or giving your comments. You are welcome to do that, because it is not the lecture. I'm the same teacher as you, actually, and I do work at a regular, well, a specialist, but still it is a school, and I do know whatever problems we have, because we have the same problems as you. And if we can join our efforts to solve the problems, then the result will be much quicker. Thank you again very much, and see you soon.